Okay,
So,
here we go.
hello and welcome to the first episode of the Top of Off podcast, where we will be discussing cricket. Simple as that, really. So I'm Pav, and then I'm joined by Jacob.
Hello.
And yeah, so we will discuss cricket. And today we're going to discuss an overview of the first international T20 game to have taken place anywhere in the world.
Test match, Pav. It's not a T20.
Well, it was a T20 game. 17
Oh
overs.
God, yeah, yeah. It wasn't even a T20 game. We don't have a lot of match summary to do because Southampton decided not to cooperate after so many nice days over the last 2 months.
Exactly that. And to think we had such good weather when cricket couldn't take place, and as soon as it has, we start with a rain delay. But we'll give an overview of the first day of the first test between England and the West Indies at Southampton. And so the day started with the England players warming up with the names of key workers on the back of their shirts. Before the game, the players and support staff from both teams kneeled to express solidarity with the BLM movement. And then there was a minute's silence, both for victims of COVID and for Sir Everton Weekes, the West Indies legend who passed away last week. The toss and start of play was delayed due to rain, but when it eventually did happen, England won the toss and decided to bat, a decision that surprised some. The West Indies bowling attack started threateningly, and Dom Sibley quickly fell for a duck in the second over of the bowling of Shannon Gabriel, which left England on 0 for 1. However, the bowling was quickly blunted somewhat, allowing Burns and Denley to dig in and take England to 35 for 1, as play was eventually abandoned early at the end of a heavily rain and light-affected day. And that is the overview of what happened today.
First things first, can we just accept, as much as I like Dom Sibley as a new opener, that was a terrible, terrible leave. How horrendous was that? I know he wasn't expecting to come back in, but it was bad.
Yeah, no, it was absolutely terrible. And it was a sort of, it was a sort of leave that I suppose you expect to sail over the stumps. And, Shannon Gabriel really had he'd really set him up that over, with a lot of those balls that sort of nipped in. Even then, as a test match opener, and I suppose you could explain this, you could excuse this as, that he was rusty after 3 months of not playing, or that there was, it was the first day of a test series. Even then, as a test match opener, these are the sort of balls that you should be picking up, and even, even a back foot defence, you just need for a ball like that. And yeah, it was a really poor leave from Dom Sibley.
He was slightly unfortunate because it was a slightly two-paced pitch. The bounce did actually vary on that one. So a ball that Gabriel, in fact, the ball before, hit basically the same spot and would have sailed over the stumps. Sibley, he left it on length. And in Australia, it's a lot easier to do that, which is why the Australians are so good at it. It's hard in England. The pitches have uneven bounce. They have different paces, and you just got to stay tight and put a bit of bat towards it. Don't edge it, but just get something out there. It doesn't matter if you play and miss. Just don't leave that.
No, for definite.
As we saw what happened.
Yeah, exactly. And I think maybe the Southampton pitch did have something to do with that, because it was a lot more bouncy. There was a lot more bounce on that pitch than people were expecting. And I mean, that's probably the reason why England chose to bat first, because, despite the overheads and despite despite the clouds and what it was looking like, they'd played on that pitch last week and they saw that there was a lot more bounce in it than is visible.
But very uneven bounce as well. The bounce was really odd. You saw a couple from Jason Holder. I know he's a big, tall man, but he put a few on a good length, bit full of a good length, almost sailed over the wicket-keeper's head, and then landed a couple shorter than them, which skidded on. So it's quite a tricky pitch. So it'll be interesting to see, especially, it spins big there. Moeen, I think, takes wickets at 15 apiece or something like that at the Ageas Bowl. So Dom Bess will be important.
Will be very important. Yeah.
And I think, it's interesting. But moving to Sibley's opening partner, Rory Burns.
So
Special milestone for him at the moment, isn't it?
Yeah. He is currently on 999 test runs, so he will take 999 test runs with him overnight. And if he scores one more run tomorrow, he will be the first England opening batsman playing as an opener to score 1,000 test runs since Alistair Cook in 2007. And so the question has to be asked: have England, excusing Sibley today, given the evidence of the South Africa tours and the Ashes last year, have England now gone some way, or even gone the whole way, to solve their opening partnership conundrum that they've had?
I think there's a start to it. Sibley, he had a poor day today, but we saw in South Africa, he's very, very capable. He got that quite magnificent 135 not out, wasn't it? Yeah. And really, really played well. He did have a bit of trouble down the leg side, gloving a few down the leg side and getting caught around the corner a few times. He's worked on that, it seems, a lot, maybe leading to his dismissal today, so determined not to get too far across the ball that he let one go. But it seems like there's a start, and I think the really important thing is the strength in depth at the top of the order.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we've got that Crawley coming.
Yeah, exactly. Well. He's at number 4 at the moment.
He's back 4 because
but it's very optimistic. And what was his name? Oh, did really well in the warm-up game. I've forgotten his name instantly.
James
Bracey.
That's it. Yeah.
He looked really organised in the warm-up game. I think he scored 85 or something like that.
He was 85. Yeah, he top scored out of both teams in that game.
So it's nice to see that strength in depth. Because before, really, it was, well, there was not a lot.
Yeah.
I think between Strauss's retirement and 2017, possibly, Cook had 12 different opening partners.
Yeah, it was.
There hasn't been stability up there for a long time, but now we got Sibley and Burns pretty solid at the top of the order. Crawley can play that role. Bracey can.
Yeah. I think the key competition now, and the key question is going to be, Sibley and Burns are pretty established at the top of the order, and when you go to somewhere like India and the subcontinent, then you play then that's when you bring Keaton Jennings back into the team as well, because he can play spin really well. But the key thing now is who bats 3, and it's not a question of who bats 3 the way it's been traditionally. Do we get Root to bat 3 where he traditionally hates it? Now it's a question of, we've got two players who bat really well at 3. You've got Denley and Crawley who bat really well there. The question, there's going to be some competition there now between who stays. And this game is going to go a long way to deciding, when Root comes back into the team for the next game, it's going to go a long way to decide who keeps that position permanently, and then who is not cast out of the team, but who takes more of a fringe role.
It seems at the moment that Denley is the man. He's not had a big score yet, and that's what he's looking for in this game. But I think since the Headingley Test, he's not really scored a lot. He's got a lot of starts. He's not had many 50s, not had 100 yet. But since the Headingley Test, he's been twice as difficult to get out, and that's really what he does well. He absorbs a lot of balls.
Yeah. So the key statistic for Denley is that in the majority of his tests since Headingley, he's batted at least 100 balls, or he's faced at least 100 balls. Now that means that he may not have made a big score. I think his average in those tests is 35 or something like that. So he doesn't make big scores with those 100 balls. But the fact is, he's in for 100 balls, which means that when he does get out, or when one of the other opening 2 gets out, Root and Stokes can come in at 4 and 5 and can just bat and play shots, and it gives them the freedom, which I haven't had in the last few years, to actually play the shots that they need to, instead of worrying about holding up a collapse.
But if I'm Zach Crawley, I'd be quite positive about his role at number 3, because Denley, he's got it for now, but what we've got to remember is he's 32. I think he's 32. 34.
Yeah, he's getting on.
He's not going to be around that much longer. And I think Crawley, if he's not opening, he certainly does better higher up the order, and so I think 3 could be a for him. Also, Ollie Pope moving up the order. I think that will happen soon, not within maybe the next year, but relatively soon in the grand scheme of things, probably in the next Ashes cycle, he'll move up, because he's at 6 at the moment, but Root debuted at 6 and now has slotted in nicely at 4. Yeah. I think Ollie Pope, and he looks very good, very organised. He could pretty easily handle being in at 4 or 3, depending on what Root and Stokes and everyone do in the future.
I think what we've got now, what we see is that it's not just a strength in depth we've got. There's a crop of young players coming through now, and these young players mean that even for the future, we've got as long as the culture in the team, and as long as the team management develops them the way that they should be developed, and recognizes that they're still young players and they can't have the weight of the role thrust upon them too early. There's definitely potential there for this to be a very fruitful period for this England team. And I think that the team culture has changed, compared to what it was 10 years ago and compared to what it was at the start of this decade, where it was a very, very difficult culture to be in, there's been so many documentaries and so many books written about how tough the England dressing room was at that, at the start of this decade and before that. And there was an unprecedented period of success there, but it was the cost of that success was that, we had some of the best young talents, the best potential, that could have come through and really held up this England team. We're just, we're pushed out of the game almost. And I think that there is a big change in culture now. There is a big difference in culture, and hopefully it means players like Ollie Pope, players like Amar Virdi as well, are going to have the support that they need to come through for England and really push this Test side, and also the ODI side as well, to continue and really have some great success.
On the mention of your favourite man, Amar Virdi, that depth goes to both sides of the ball as well, because there's a very interesting development today. Stuart Broad left out of the Test side in England for the first time since 2012, I believe.
First time in 8 years that he hasn't been in a home Test. Yeah,
long time for him, and it's interesting now. What does that mean for Broad Anderson? Less so Jimmy. Jimmy's got a few more years, I think. Because he's still performing at such a high level, and Broad is as well. But Broad is always seen as the more droppable one of the two.
He's always been this sort of second fiddle in that partnership, and I mean,
which is
fact that he has
not difficult when it's Anderson, leading fast bowler of all time.
Yeah, but also the fact that we say second fiddle, but Stuart Broad has almost 500 Test wickets himself.
Fantastic.
He's one of the best fast bowlers as well. It just so happens that the guy he plays with is the best of all time.
And Anderson's now 37.
Yeah.
Broad's a bit younger, I think.
He's in his mid-30s.
So they're both obviously in the twilight. Anderson, he says he's targeting the next Ashes. I think that's a realistic goal. But there is a great young crop of bowlers coming through as well. And I think Wood
the question
and
has to be asked, is this current crop, are the new crop of fast bowlers that are coming through for England some of the best we've ever had? That's the question you've got to ask.
Wood and Archer are certainly, to my memory, the fastest partnership that's played for England.
Yeah.
So for maybe not individually the fastest bowlers, although Archer is pretty quick and Wood can get up there as well.
Yeah.
And actually I find Wood more consistently fast than Archer sometimes.
Archer is best used in short bursts, and I think Joe Root figured that out last summer. Because I think Archer was, with the exception of that spell against Steve Smith and his battle with Steve Smith, Archer was quite badly used in the Ashes last summer. I think he was almost overused, and it contributed to the injuries that he had then in that summer. But I think they figured out that he's best used in short bursts, and obviously we haven't seen that since, because he's been injured. He was injured over over the winter as well. But I think we'll see that when England do eventually get to bat in this game, we'll see Archer be used for more short bursts, and then Wood hold up the other end of the bowling attack.
I think at the moment, with English conditions at the very least, it's going to be Anderson and Archer taking the new ball.
Yeah.
Wood replacing Archer to keep pressure on, and then obviously they've got Bess in at the moment. Stokes bowls fantastically, of course. They've got Wokes who can come in anytime you're at Lords, which they're not at the moment, sadly. But anytime you're at Lords, Wokes is a 100% in, just his record there. But he has a very good record in England.
Yeah, he does.
And I think the future of it, if we remove Jimmy and Broad from the conversation, which sadly eventually we'll have to do, I think the future of English bowling is probably a Broad, Wood and Archer with the new ball. At home, Archer and Wokes. And then you've got Stokes as your all-rounder, and then the big battle in the spinners, of course.
I mean, we've got so much depth in our spinners as well. You know, you've got Don Bess is obviously the first choice at the moment.
He's bowling really well.
He's
bowling
really
well.
You know, Jack Leach did really well. I mean, you know, he's probably one of our best batsmen as well.
He can open. He's an opener. There you go. More strength and depth.
But no, I mean, we do have a brilliant strength of depth, you know, in our spinners as well. You know, and obviously Moeen didn't make the cut this time. You've got young players like Amar, you know, and also, I mean, Don Bess is a young player as well, but he's bowling really well at this point.
I've seen some of Amar Virdi's stuff, and you know, the guy's seriously good though.
He is, and
on
he's never played
pitches,
any.
Yeah, he's never played short format. Yeah,
he is simply a red ball bowler.
On helpful pitches, he is properly good. I saw him in a county match. He took 8.
Yeah,
fantastic, skillful bowler. Needs a bit of refining, obviously. He's only 21.
I mean,
but I think if England can wrap up this series in the next 2 games, Old Trafford's a helpful pitch. You get turn, you get bounce. Definitely the 3rd game of the series, if it's not the series on the line, Virdi's got to be in. Surely, because it's such a good place for him to make a debut and get that Test experience at that young age. See if he can handle the pressure.
I think that even if he's not selected this summer, when we go to India in the winter, I mean, he surely has to be in then.
You know,
absolutely. You know, you want a player like that, especially because he has experience of playing in India, and he has experience not just of playing in India, but he spent a long time with a few other England spinners last winter attending a spin camp. And you know, and that was in Mumbai. So the fact is, he knows what Indian pitches are like, you know, and he's played with the Lions in India as well, and he's also played with the Lions in Australia. So he does have that experience, and obviously it's not Test level, but he has experience with an international team.
Yeah, I'm looking forward in a year's time or so to see Wood and Archer go together into an Ashes series.
Yeah,
because for so long in Australia, we've missed that pace, that bounce, the stuff that you need in Australia, the kind of frightening 2013 Mitchell Johnson type stuff, you know, because Jimmy bowls well in Australia. I don't think statistically he bowls his best, but he bowls, you know, he's Jimmy Anderson, he bowls well.
Yeah.
But I think if you look back to, let's take that 2013-14 Ashes series for an example, he was backed up by Broad and Bresnan, was it? Tim Bresnan?
Yeah.
And, you know, they're good, but they're all around the sort of 80-mile-an-hour mark, trying to swing it.
Everyone that bowls
so much in. Yeah.
And
it's just that variation.
It is just pure pace, you know.
And it's just having a bit of variation. Someone like Sam Curran as well, who we haven't mentioned yet, I don't know where I think he's ill, isn't he? That's why he's not in the squad. But he adds another dimension.
Yeah, he had to sit out the training games last week. Yeah.
You know, left arm pace. Different in Australia because he relies on a lot of swing. He's a good bowler, but he's at his best when the ball's zipping about. And in Australia, that's probably not going to happen so much.
Yeah. And what we know that Curran adds to the team as well is that middle order batting. You know, it just gives us something more before the tail kicks in. And we know that, I mean, 2 summers ago, Curran had some really important innings, because that was when, you know, England were collapsing then, and we were collapsing quite often. So it got to the point where our top 4 would fall, and we'd have just made 100, and then you'd need sort of a partnership of 50 or 100 from Curran and Stokes.
Yeah, I think something we've neglected as well in terms of talking about the bowling is, obviously we mentioned India next winter. I think they're touring here next summer, but we're touring there next winter.
Yeah.
And we talked about, you know, Virdi possibly there and the spinners, but India's become a hub for pace bowling at the moment.
It's got a really good pace
in the world.
Yeah.
And their surfaces are really geared towards pace bowlers getting lots of wickets, and with pace and speed and bounce, and not so much with the swing, although they do swing it quite well. But I think similar to Australia, and the global climate at the moment is very much ball over bat, fast bowling.
Yeah.
Unless you're in New Zealand, because we all remember that was. I found that a dull series. It just the bat was too dominant over the ball. I didn't like it.
Yeah.
But the global climate at the moment trending towards being able to move the ball fast, and
what I think what we're seeing is a resurgence of what happened in the 80s and 90s, where fast bowling is now coming back, you know. And there was a period 10, 15 years ago where fast bowling was, you know, obviously it hadn't died out, but it wasn't as important as, you know, you have the era of Shane Warne where spin is then dominant, and you have Murali as well. But now fast bowling has come back into its own, and we're seeing a whole generation of really good pace bowlers coming through.
I think there's a really nice balance at the moment as well, because you get a lot of pitches around the world, in England, as we're seeing actually this week, in the West Indies, in India, and in Australia, where yes, they're great for fast bowling. They're hard pitches. They bounce. They carry. There is a bit of swing in them.
Yeah.
But equally, they get a lot of turn and bounce. And so they're really helpful for the spinners as well, which creates a very nice contest. I mean, Nathan Lyon is the optimum example of this. He has always been able to extract that sort of turn from fast bowling geared wickets, and I think that's the general climate at the moment.
No, I definitely agree with you there. Yeah.
Yeah. So we also mentioned about white ball cricket. We should address some of it, even though it's a very red ball week.
Yeah, and I think there is I think this links into the absence of Moeen, you know, and the absence of Johnny Bairstow as well. I think they've both now been sent to train with the white ball team. So does that now, obviously this summer, it's out of anyone's control that red ball and white ball cricket will be separated. But is this something that we should do permanently? And is it something that should happen, you know, even when we don't have a pandemic? Should there be a separation between the red ball and white ball teams? And this goes, I think, you know, this links to what's happened in the last few years, where the test team almost has been, the English test team has been a victim of the success of the ODI team, you know, in building a world-class, you know, ODI team that, you know, obviously won the World Cup a year ago. We've geared our batsmen and we've geared our sort of batting culture to being very aggressive and very positive batting. But obviously on a test pitch and in a test match, you can't bat like that from the off. You know, you have to bed yourself in. You have to get your iron, or you have to negotiate the new ball. And when the red ball, which does stuff that a white ball doesn't do, comes into play, we've seen our teams fall a bit short. And so is the separation something that's good?
Well, this is something we were talking about a couple of weeks ago, and I think actually it is a good thing. Ben Stokes, after his Headingley innings, quite notably said, obviously, his experience in white ball cricket helped him do some of that stuff. We saw Ollie Pope, who hasn't, you know, done a huge amount of white ball cricket, but outrageously scooping Rabada for 6 in South Africa. And I think it has helped the red ball game to some extent, but it's also damaged it. And Johnny Bairstow being left out of the squad, he's a very good example of this. The number of times he's been bowled and LBW, particularly bowled, this is one of his highest percentage methods of dismissal. It's just because he has to try and get out the habit of opening up his arms and throwing his hands at the ball to get to the offside. And it's just, we saw Josh Hazlewood, I think, bowl him a few times, and skillful bowlers like that, they can thread the ball through a needle, and they're gonna bowl you if you have too much of a gap between bat and pad.
Yeah. So
I think ultimately it's a good thing. We mentioned Virdi as well, being a straight red ball player. I think that's a really good thing, especially for a spinner, because I think possibly more.
And it's not just Amar Virdi as well. Rory Burns plays very little short form.
Yeah.
Denny doesn't play much as well. Dom Sibley as well. So our opening three, for the first time in I don't know how long, aren't a product of the short form age, and
which is the most crucial thing. I think the top three probably is the most crucial part of that. But just again on Virdi, I think that is particularly good for a spin bowler, because possibly more so than any other skill in red and white ball cricket, the difference between how you bowl spin is vast. The length you bowl, how much turn you want, all of that. So and because it's such a subtle tactical thing, there's a lot less give than fast bowling, and people want to smack spinners about, especially in the white ball age. So I think that's a very good thing. I like the separation. I think also from
on the topic of Amar Virdi as well, you have this sort of with the short form, you can't take too long as a spinner before you take wickets. You can't leak runs eventually until you take wickets. Whereas in a test match, you see what Nathan Lyon does, where it will take him a few overs before he starts taking wickets. But once he gets into that, once he gets through those first few overs, he's one of the best bowlers in the world. And this is something that, and this is something that I think players like Amar Virdi will be free of. Is that sort of pressure to bowl too much too quickly, and to try and take wickets too quickly.
Having a good spinner is so important in a test match. I did not like it when England for a while went 5 seamers, because just having that spinner who can, we saw Nathan Lyon do it in the Ashes. He bowled, I think, 20 overs in a row. Just because they can hold up that end, the run rate goes down, pressure comes on, and your fast bowler is always fresh because you're only going to put one on at a time. I like the separation. From an ECB perspective, money. It's financially advantageous as well, because if you can run a 5-match test series and at the same time run a 3-match ODI series or a 5-match T20 series, you play one a week in a 5-match test series, then you get a lot of money from that. And
definitely.
Especially, if we tour, when we tour India, if you put on a 5-match test series or a 3-match test series or whatever it is, and once or twice a week at night put on a T20 game, you'll double your revenue effectively. So I don't see why you wouldn't do it. And I think with the depth we have at the moment, and with the depth a lot of sides have at the moment, it's pretty possible to do it. Obviously, guys like Stokes, who are good enough, can cross over between Archer's. Archer's very valuable in white ball as well, so he can cross over. But I think, your opening batters in ODI and your opening batters in Test, as Jason Roy so definitively proved, they should definitely be kept separate.
For sure.
Sibley, Crawley, and Burns shouldn't play one day, and
I don't think they will
really play Test.
And I think definitely the point you make about Ben Stokes, he will be. I mean, he is a key player for England, not just in Test but also in short form. So he will switch between the two. But someone like Joe Root, you have to think about what this does for Root. It means, because he can play ODI cricket very well,
Yeah.
But it takes the pressure off him to play ODI cricket. You know, it means that he can focus on the Test game. And as
I
Test
think
captain,
that
that's brilliant.
would definitely be a good thing. And similar to that, the kind of the other way, I don't think Butler should be in the Test team. I think Butler should focus on ODI because he's such a good player in ODI and T20.
He's probably, I would say he's the best ODI batsman in the world at the moment.
Probably one of them. So I think, definitely let Folkes be wicketkeeper. You know, Butler's form at the moment in Test as well isn't great. So maybe a little break in white ball, just getting his eye in, is what he needs. His keeping's good. And once Bairstow maybe has fixed up some stuff, you can bring him back in as another wicketkeeper. Yeah. I'm sure there are other wicketkeepers in the land. You know, we'll have some, but Folkes is more of a Test-orientated player.
Yeah,
and so
but even Bairstow, you know, he doesn't need to be a Test match player.
No, he doesn't.
Bairstow does really well in ODI games. You know, I mean, his partnership with Jason Roy is spectacular for England. So just keep him there.
Very, very useful player. Yeah. So I think that's probably a good change to introduce. But yeah, I think now maybe if we move on to talking about the weather.
It's always about the weather in England. We might cut off in about 5 minutes because I don't know if there's a 40-minute limit on these calls. If we do, we'll just start another call. But in terms of the weather, you know, we had so many delays today. Yeah, it's typical. English cricket starts again, and Test cricket starts again for the first time in months, and it starts with a rain delay. It couldn't get any more English than that. But the main thing is, you know, obviously, if it's raining, there's not much you can do. You know, you can't suddenly put a roof over every Test ground in the country. You know, and nor would you want to. But in terms of poor light, and you have to remember, it wasn't the rain that stopped today's game, and stopped play today. It was the poor light that stopped it. So in the modern day, in 2020, do we really need to be stopping Test games for poor light? Do we really need to be pausing Test games for poor light? I don't think we do. I really think that there must be a way that we can that we can plan for this, and we if it's looking cloudy at the start of a game, or if the weather report says it's going to rain or there's going to be light rain, then we anticipate that means there will be clouds as well, and that means that the light won't be the best. So surely you could have a system where both teams beforehand agree, well, let's use a pink ball for this game then, and it avoids then having to bring the pink ball in halfway through. They agree at the start, let's use a pink ball. And that means that by the time the poor light comes in, you can switch the lights on and you can keep on playing because you have a pink ball.
Yeah, I think there's a few solutions to this. First of all, just on the rain point, I understand it's very difficult to do stuff about rain. I think probably there could be a little bit of adjustment in the rules. Today, for example, it was really light drizzle. It was basically just kind of water on the wind. It wasn't so much rain. And I think you can stay out in that. I think the umpires have got to say, right, if it gets heavier than this, we'll go off. But if it stays, just because it's slightly raining, if it stays at this level, we'll just play in it. Because you can play cricket in the rain.
I think the only thing you might have there is, especially from I think especially from the bowlers, you'd have this concern that, well, we play in the rain, the water will have an effect on the way that the ball degrades, and it will degrade differently to if we're playing in dry conditions. But even then, I agree with you, and I think that,
I mean, that's kind of part of the game. You could say, well, the ball will degrade differently if it's rain. 1 second. Yes, we're recording.
You're still doing your podcast?
Yes.
Dinner soon.
Okay. We can edit that bit out. The ball deteriorating differently in the rain. 100 things affect the condition of the ball. You can just accept that it's part of the conditions, and it's better than not playing. Unless it stops the ball, unless it means that
Yeah.
the ball is so slippery that people are chucking bombs out there, which in fairness, if it's that heavy that it'll do that, then
we should
they go off. But I think you can continue playing. In terms of the light thing, first of all, basically all the grounds have floodlights now. So the fact that floodlights can be on and you still can't see the ball seems a bit odd. But I do think your idea of the pink ball could be a good idea. Just say, we both use the pink ball for 80 overs until the new ball comes on. Even if it gets sunny tomorrow, you still have to use the pink ball.
Yeah.
And a lot more day-night tests. Day-night tests are a great thing. The Indians do.
I think they're brilliant anywhere but England, because I think when
we had one against the West Indies before.
We did at
Edgbaston. That went off.
We had one at Edgbaston 2 years ago.
They're a really good thing.
I think the only thing in England is it doesn't get dark enough to enjoy day-night tests. You have a bit of gloom, but because the summer days are so long, we don't have the experience that you would have in Australia with a day-night test, where it does look so good in the dark. That pink ball with players in their whites in the dark is spectacular.
I'm definitely a big supporter of more day-night tests, and I'm really happy that Ganguly in India is pushing for that so hard.
Yeah.
Because especially in places, as you say, like India and Australia, they're really good, and obviously the low threat of rain there. But I think we can do them here. I think there's no reason why we can't.
Yeah,
there's just too much risk of rain.
I agree.
We'd probably be reconsidering if we had a beautiful sunny day and then it starts hammering down in the evening and we're oh no, whole day of Test cricket wiped out because we didn't start at 11. But again, you can change the. Well, I suppose you can't change it on the day. There's broadcasting and all that. But
yeah, of course. I think though, the other thing to mention is that rain and delays are part of the game, and I suppose when you come to Test cricket, they add that strategic element, because it means that captains have to plan around that, and it means that teams have to plan which bowler they're going to use when, how are they going to make the most of the conditions.
And it does make it a 5-day game as well.
Yeah, it really does. But at the same time, I think when it gets to the point where you play just 17 overs a day, like we did today, then we need to do something about it. And even then, the pink ball fundamentally does different stuff to the red ball, and not by much, but it does do different stuff. So that strategic element is still there, because you're still having to plan around what you're going to do with the pink ball and how you're going to utilize that. And then obviously if you switch from the pink ball to the red ball, say both teams bowl 80 overs with the pink ball, and then obviously the red ball comes on as a new ball, the next day. I think then that adds an interesting strategic element as well, because suddenly you've got a ball that does different stuff to the ball that you had before, and that it adds that interest to Test cricket that you don't get with ODI or T20 cricket. Yeah.
Right. The final thing we had to moan about was LBW rules.
We did.
Because they need changing. I'm telling you, they need to shake it.
Yeah. I do agree with you here.
As I said to you today, I texted you in real time about it.
Yeah.
There was a ball today, one of the very few balls we had today, pitched. It was from Gabriel, I think. He was coming over the wicket to Rory Burns, and pitched outside leg, nipped back in, and would have cannoned into middle and leg, impacting in line as well. But it's just because it pitched outside that it's not out. It's ridiculous. Leg before wicket means if your legs prevent the ball hitting the wicket, you're out. And I think it would improve batting. People have to be aware of that. It would make a lot more room in the game for people like Dom Sibley, who are leg side players. Because if that's a legitimate way of getting out, people are going to pitch outside leg a bit more. It helps him play more on the leg side. And it just adds a different dimension to the game, and means that leg before wicket actually means leg before wicket, not leg before wicket unless you play a shot and it pitches outside, but it's still going to hit. But oh dear.
I mean, saying this, LBW rules, and I mean, like most cricket rules, they do change over time, and they change quite significantly over time. So I was watching replays of some of the old Test matches on the BBC between England and the West Indies over the last few weeks. And the first one they showed was from 75. Yeah, so it's in the 70s, and you have this game being played, and you have the commentators there. When an LBW decision is made, saying, "Oh, back in our day, you were able to push off the if you didn't play a stop, if you didn't play a shot, then you were able to push off the stumps you were able to push the ball off with your pads, But, and you see that today, and you think, why would you do that?
The reason that changed is because we ultimately realised it was extremely dull watching people like Shane Warne coming in bowling, and people just pad him away.
Yeah,
and it's madness. And Shane Warne actually was a really good example of this. And Adil Rashid playing against India a few years ago was another one. The ball can pitch a mile outside leg and still hit off stump.
Yeah,
like you can get some absolute rippers, and I think if it's going to hit, it's out. Like because Rashid, I think he bowled. Who did he bowl? Bowled KL Rahul possibly.
Yeah.
Someone with an absolute ripper of a ball pitched about a yard outside leg and hit off stump. And if whoever it was batting hadn't missed it and had padded it away, it would have been not out. Yeah. But it's still hitting stumps. So it seems it stems from this kind of odd attitude at the inception of cricket, that it was an offside only game and scoring runs on the leg side was a bit dirty and cheating, really. But that's beyond different now, and I think we need to update LBW to get on with this. And the rule hasn't been updated for a while. It's more the way the umpires enforced it. So they used to never give LBW out on the front foot, but now they will, and the rule just needs changing.
I think I do agree with you there. The only thing is ball tracking. I mean, because if you say that that if it's going to hit the stumps, it's out, then regardless of where it pitches, then you put a lot of faith in ball tracking.
But I mean, it's remarkably reliable.
It is, yeah, I suppose it is. But there are the odd cases where I mean, you'd have teams like India, especially, who have been very vocal in historically, especially in the last 10 years, have been very vocal about their dislike of reviews and their dislike of the use of technology. If you have teams like that, I feel that they would have a hard time accepting that you're putting a lot of faith in ball tracking here.
But I mean, India made noise about ball tracking when it came in, and now they just kind of accept it as standard. I think they're going to make noise about it, but ultimately, if you can get it through, which they did with ball tracking originally, it's an extremely reliable technical system, and there is room for that margin of error in the form of umpires' call and retaining the review, and that gives a lot of impetus to the umpires. I think just ball tracking is so reliable these days that it's reasonable to do it, and you can put your faith in it.
Yeah,
but people just, for some reason, don't want to do it.
I mean, I think that they definitely should have a look at LBW, and I think that what you're saying about pitching doesn't matter is really true, actually, and it means you don't favour certain bowlers over others in terms of how they get their dismissals, and it also means that you sort of equalise the sort of advantages that you get from bowling around the wicket or bowling over the wicket. So it's definitely a good idea.
Because if you look at Shane Warne, greatest leg spinner of all time, he bowled pretty much always round the wicket.
Yeah.
And it's very hard to get an LBW unless you've got a massive googly, which you can just make zigzag. But and Shannon Gabriel's another one, because of the angle he delivers the ball at. If he's bowling across Rory Burns in this next week, as he was, it's basically impossible for him to pitch it in the tram lines and for it to go on the stumps unless he has bowls a huge leg cutter or something. It's not going to work.
Yeah.
So I think definitely it's time to have a look at the rule.
I think I would agree with you there. And I think that definitely having a look at the possibility of pink balls, more day-night games, updating LBW. It's ways that cricket as a whole, but I mean with the pink balls and day-night games, especially Test cricket, can continue to innovate and become appealing again, or increase their appeal for modern day audiences, because this is one of the things that Test cricket has to do now. It has to innovate. So that's the last thing that we have to discuss and complain about from today. So the question for you is, what was your standout moment from the day?
Well, it's hard to pick. I think the standout moment from the day has got to be Sibley's wicket, because it was basically the only moment of action. There were a few very nice shots from Burns and Denley, a couple of, I think there was a cut shot from Denley which raced away, but I think ultimately the biggest moment was losing Sibley on naught. And that's what stood out for me. Who was your player of the day, and what was your moment of the day?
Player of the day, Shannon Gabriel. He looked very threatening, especially in his early spell. I think he bowled too many short balls, in his later few overs. But those first couple of overs that he bowled, were spectacular. He got the pitching just right. He got the lengths just right. And his wicket of Sibley, I think, I would agree with you, was spectacular. It was a brilliant ball, and the amount that it moved, it was great. And yeah, I mean, from the England side, I would say that Burns and Denley, I mean, and especially Burns, he's really grown into his own as an opener. There were a lot of reservations that people had about his technique, especially last summer and even over the winter, because he has a very unorthodox technique, but it works, and he's proven that it works. And everything that he was caught up on, everything that was, everything that became a problem for him, everywhere he was found out, last summer it was a short ball and it was the bouncers that he was caught out with. He's been able to just work out, and he's been able to actually do them right. And so I would say that Rory Burns from England is a really bright prospect and probably the best player of the day.
And moment of the day?
Sibley's wicket.
Okay.
Definitely Sibley's wicket.
I'm going to agree with you on Burns for player of the day. I'm not going to agree with you on Shannon Gabriel.
Okay.
I think while he had the big headline grabbing moment with Sibley's wicket, I think actually Kemar Roach at the other end was utterly fantastic, so skillful. He kept the pressure on. I don't know exactly how many, but he bowled a lot of maiden overs. I think he only went for like 2 runs during the day. He was exceptional, and I think he allowed Gabriel to be that bit more expensive and to be more adventurous in his bowling, while he just relentless line and length at good pace as well. So
I think the West Indies as well. I mean, we haven't spoken. We haven't spoken about them much this podcast. But definitely the West Indies as a team, are beginning to rise again, and they are beginning to look a lot better. We've had 20 years, 25 years of the West Indies in decline, really, in terms of Test cricket. And their Test team is now rising there. You've got a really exciting captain in Jason Holder. You've got someone who is, really good as well as a player and as a captain. And it'll be really interesting to see where they go.
Well, I think we can pick that up tomorrow with our more Windies focus special, unless anything particularly happens from the England side.
No, that's it. Okay, so last thing before we go, is, in one word, how would you describe the day and the action of the day?
Moist. Or anticlimactic. There you go.
Yeah, I would say sparse. It hasn't been much, but it is a really good start. And we'll
and just good to have Test cricket back. Just good to have international, particularly Test cricket back.
Yeah, definitely.
Right. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you for listening.
Thank you, everyone, for listening. Not that there are many of you, but thank you. Yes. We will be back again tomorrow.
Listen to 2 guys complain about LBW and the red ball for so long.
We'll be back tomorrow.
Yep, definitely. So thank you for listening to Top of Off, and we will see you tomorrow.